Lilu Diane, I might be saying that wrong, followed by Steve Bowles.
Thank you, City Council. It's Lilu Diane, but very well, very well. It's a hard name. I come to y'all as a Waco-born, Waco-raised native. I have served this community in my own businesses, and I have served in the activism role as well. I am also a rape survivor. I was 15 and brutally attacked in my hometown, right outside of here. I was sodomized and beaten unrecognizably, and also impregnated. I was 15, and very young, I had to make a choice, and I did. And I do not speak ill will towards my counterparts, but I did have an abortion, and it was 22 years ago, and I still, to this day, believe in what I did, and I do believe that I did what is right. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children, and basically I fight for the right to medical procedures, not going underground. I fight for the Grace Act. I fight for my own personal reasons, it being because it is my personal choice. It was not my personal choice of what happened to me. It was not my free will of what happened to me. And as a voice in this community, trying to be of peace in mind, I do ask that you consider all stories. And yes, God is graceful. Many gods are graceful. And I believe that I have grace by what I stand by. This community, the women do not need to be criminalized for brutal choices that we make. They are brutal. They do not leave us. It has not left me. It has been 22 years. I see my 16-year-old twin sons, my 8-year-old daughter, and I thank God every day for those 3 children. And I remember the one that was put inside of me unlawfully. Unlawfully, it was there. No criminalization. I do not deserve to be criminalized for my actions. It is a choice, and it is a very tough, difficult one that tears are still shed to these days. But I did, as a 15-year-old child, make that choice here in the state of Texas, outside of Waco, Texas. And I will speak for that. Thank you, City Council.
Thank you. Next we have Steve Bowles, but before that, I'm going to announce the next cards that I have, and that is Susan Kosian, Scott Spain-Smith, Roberta McLaughlin, Ramiro Pena, and Barbara Pearson. Again, that is Susan Kosian, Scott Spain-Smith, Roberta McLaughlin, Ramiro Pena, and Barbara Pearson. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. To start off, anyone who professes to be a Christian should know that God and only God is the final authority on truth and what is right and what is wrong. If you are a Christian, you should always strive to align. If you are a Christian, you should always strive to align your moral compass with the absolute truth of God's word. It is truth that does not waver. Whether we as humans believe or don't believe in something doesn't make it true. I can believe all day long that I'm Superman. But the reality is that if I go jump off this building, the truth about gravity is going to be revealed. Gravity doesn't care what I believe, just like truth doesn't care what you believe. It's still the truth whether you believe it or not. For those of us in this room who profess to follow Christ, God says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." let's start by agreeing with God that all life is precious in His sight and that we are all created in God's image. Our value is not based on what we can contribute to society. Our value is given to us based on who created us. We as Christians know our life is valuable because God gave it to us and for no other reason. Let us finally agree that life begins at the moment of conception, without exception, and that a baby is a baby at that time. As Christians, it is our duty, honor, and privilege to defend human life, both in the womb and outside of the womb. Life is a gift from God, much like grace is a free gift from Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
Mayor, that wasn't his time. I'm sorry. That was someone else's phone.
Oh, I apologize. I thought that was your timer.
Can I
You can wrap
continue?
up your comments. Please silence your phones.
Okay. It is our duty, honor, and privilege to honor and defend life both in the womb and outside of the womb. Life is a gift from God, much like grace is a free gift from Jesus to those who are willing to receive it. Grace is getting what we don't deserve. Grace is not what this proposed city ordinance known as the Guarding the Right to Abortion Care for Everyone, or the Grace Act, is proposing. This ordinance act is the complete opposite of grace. It promotes a death sentence to the most innocent and vulnerable among us. Lord, help us to see and know the truth, your truth. Open our eyes to our wickedness and expose our sin to us. Let us repent of our sins and receive the true grace and mercy that can only be found in Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card I have is Susan Koshin, followed by Scott Spain Smith. If y'all would all line up on this wall over here. Koshin, Scott Spain Smith, Roberta McLaughlin, Ramiro Pena, and Barbara Pearson. Susan Koshin here, okay. Scott Spain Smith. Do y'all know if the other room has gotten this notification yet?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Roberta McLaughlin and Ramiro Pena.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you so much for the privilege of standing before you and for the opportunity to get to know you maybe a little bit. I don't know any of you really personally, except for Councilperson Rodriguez, who I've known for over 30 years. We worked on many things together.
Thank you.
It is so important, and I'm so thankful for your words, Mayor, for civil discourse to take place. We shouldn't have the fear of discussing ideas. Some ideas are reasonable and some ideas are unreasonable. Some ideas are good and some are not so good. The idea of the Grace Act, the idea that city councils should decide what state laws should be enforced and then how they should be enforced, I submit to you, is really unreasonable. It sends the wrong message, it sets the wrong precedent, and finally, it creates wrong policy. Sends the wrong message, first of all. Why would we want to send the message to our law enforcement, our esteemed police chief who's here, that the council feels the need to micromanage law enforcement? It's unreasonable. Why would we want to send that? It sends a wrong message. Secondly, it sets the wrong precedent. We've seen in cities all over America where laws are subjectively enforced or not enforced to the result of chaos, businesses closing, increased crime, lack and loss of personal safety. That precedent of that kind of city leadership, we don't need in Waco, Texas. Let it stay over there. We honor you and we're so thankful for your selfless hours, but please, subjective deciding what laws and then how those state laws should be implemented sets a bad precedent. And finally, it creates wrong policy. The truth is, I'm trying to keep this at a 30,000-foot view and not get into the highly emotional part of the subject. But to create a policy that city council has the authority to decide how to implement state law or which ones should be enforced and which ones shouldn't. That's unreasonable policy. I humbly and respectfully submit to you, it's simply not your responsibility. You simply have no authority to tell the district attorney what to enforce or not enforce. And I don't think you want to send the wrong message to law enforcement. You don't want to set the wrong precedent. And I don't think any of you want to set up wrong policy. God bless you. Thank you for letting me speak.
Reverend. Next we have Barbara Pearson, but before she begins, I'm going to read the next cards. I have Erin Shank, Lynn Raspberry, Jordan Fernandez, Katie Lloyd, and Michael Larson. Again, that's Erin Shank, Lynn Raspberry, Jordan Fernandez, Katie Lloyd, and Michael Larson.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Pearson. I am a 20-year retired Navy veteran, a mother and a grandmother. In 1973, shortly after Roe v. Wade was decided, while stationed overseas with the U.S. Navy, I was raped by a fellow service member. I soon learned I had become pregnant as a result of that rape. I was subsequently threatened and coerced into getting an abortion, and I was sent back stateside for a procedure that would alter the rest of my life. That procedure was painful and terrifying. As I lay there weeping, my unborn child was torn apart and suctioned out of me to be deposited into a surgical tray. A nurse examining what they referred to as products of conception suddenly stated it would have been a boy. Not a clump of cells, as I had been told, but a fully formed little boy. My son, who I would never have the chance to hold, to watch his first steps, to watch him grow into manhood. On that day, not one life was destroyed, but two. I have lived the rest of my life with post-abortion syndrome. Lived with the pain, regret, shame, and heartbreak of that day and that decision. If I could go back in time, even though my child was conceived in rape, I would choose life for my son. Science has advanced since then, and we know that the unborn child has unique DNA of its own from the moment of conception, a living being separate from its mother. The only difference between that child and you is time and location. Pro-abortion advocates will say the right to abortion empowers women. But how is it empowering to tell women that they cannot have children and a successful career? I did both. How does it strengthen and encourage families to destroy our future generations and disproportionately target minority populations? Our Constitution guarantees life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to all its citizens. It does not guarantee the right for anyone to murder their child, and I challenge anyone to show me where that exists in the Constitution. Our great state of Texas has had the courage to pass laws to protect the unborn. The Waco Police Department, in their mission statement, declares, quote, "Our mission is to provide police services to the Waco community with integrity, professionalism, accountability, and respect to preserve life and property, to enforce the law within the framework of the Constitution." Today, with the GRACE Act, you are proposing that they violate their oaths and mission and turn a blind eye to those who would choose to break our laws within this community. If you don't agree with the law, you work to change it, but you do not have the option to cherry pick which laws you will uphold.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Erin Shank, followed by Lynn Raspberry.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a handout for council.
That's great. Our city secretary can distribute that. You know she's attorney because she's waiting for the distribution to the jury pool before she...
Mayor, Council, I'm Erin Shank. I'm a resident of Waco, Texas, and I've been a practicing attorney here in Texas for almost 40 years. I am also a candidate for the Texas House of Representatives. I am on your ballot on November 8th, 2022. I have been studying the Roe v. Wade opinion and its ramifications since I attended law school in the late 80s. As we all know, the U.S. Supreme Court has overturned Roe v. Wade, and our country has gone from abortion as a constitutional right to now, in Texas, a complete ban on abortion. I hear on the campaign trail over and over again that the vast majority of Wacoans want us to find a place in the middle on this issue. I am trying to find that place in the middle. As we strive to find the middle, we cannot begin the conversation by imprisoning our girls and their doctors. That's barbaric. That's not American. As an attorney, I received Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's press releases by email. Mr. Paxton's latest advisory, which is now in front of you, is a full-throated request that local Texas prosecutors prosecute our doctors, nurses, medical staff with punishments of life in prison, a $100,000 fine, and loss of medical license if a pregnancy is terminated. Mr. Paxton specifically says that the pregnant woman cannot be penalized with these criminal penalties. Only her doctor, hospital, and medical staff can. I have personally spoken with local doctors who treat pregnant women, and this law has a chilling effect on their ability to help women in difficult pregnancies. My husband and I have 3 children. Our 3rd pregnancy was difficult and full of intense medical decisions. Rachel's birth was traumatic. She was born catastrophically ill. And she and I spent 27 days, her first 27 days of life, in the pediatric intensive care unit in Children's Hospital in Dallas, where she was care flighted shortly after her birth. I therefore know what it is like to have a medical challenging pregnancy and birth. I thank God that when Dr. James Norwood, my husband John Shank, and I were making the decision about my pregnancy and Rachel's birth, Dr. Norwood's whole entire focus was on the medical treatment he was giving me and my unborn child, and he did not have any fear that his advice was going to subject him or his nurses, medical staff, and the hospital and other personnel to imprisonment for life. I stand here today to urge you to firmly support Hillcrest Scott and White Hospital, Ascension Providence Hospital, Waco Family Health, and all the many doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals that work in this field, and put this on the agenda as a future item for us to discuss as a community. Our medical community will stand with you and your family when you are sick, when you're in an accident, or when you are nearing the end of your life. We need to stand with them today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Lynn Raspberry, followed by Jordan Fernandez.
Well, good evening. I have spoken to a lot of people. This is first time to the council, and I'm just really thankful that you are hearing us. My name is, of course, Lynn Raspberry, and I'm a Waco resident. I'm also an Army veteran for 21 years. I retired, and I was just proud to serve our country. And unfortunately, I'm also a victim of abortion. It was my only pregnancy, my only child. And I have a lot of thought about this, and I've talked a lot about it, and I'd like to share with you guys. I was married and pregnant at an inconvenient time in my life. There was really no reason not to have the child. My husband and I hired a hitman named Planned Parenthood and had my only baby and my only pregnancy murdered. I have never been the same. After much counseling and making Jesus Lord of my life, I've received enough healing to be able to help other women to have their babies or adopt their babies. As a pro-life advocate and abortion recovery counselor at Church of the Open Door, I have held babies in my arms that the mother chose not to abort after counseling with them. And I have held women in my arms who have cried for years because they aborted their babies. There's nothing that we can do about it after we've done that. There's no grave site we can go to. It's just an empty area in our heart. Planned Parenthood and its push for abortions has hurt many families, and it's not health care. Helping women to go out of state to get an abortion causes irreversible damage to the heart of a mother and any relationship that they try to keep together. Please do not encourage women to have abortions out of Texas. Let us not be held accountable for these babies' lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Jordan Fernandez, followed by Katie Lloyd.
Thank you, council members and the mayor. My name is Jordan Fernandez. I live in District 2, and I am standing up here today in support of the GRACE Act. When we talk about reproductive rights, the topic of abortion gets thrown in the spotlight the most, as it should. But abortion is just a small cog in a giant wheel of moving parts. One of those parts that I want to shine a light on is the clear and imminent danger to pregnancy rights. In 2013, the Journal of Public Health Law and Policy published the NAPW, or the National Advocates for Pregnant Women, peer-reviewed study documenting arrests, detentions, and equivalent deprivations of physical liberty of women between 1973 and 2005, in which being pregnant was a necessary element of the crime or a but-for reason for the coercive or punitive action taken. The study documented 413 such cases. The NAPW has further documented approximately 1,331 such cases from 2006 to 2020. This equals over 1,700 cases between 1973 and 2020. What our government, what our local government, especially the Supreme Court justices that oppose abortion, is heading toward is not just recriminalizing abortion, but a change in the legal rights of all pregnant women. In other words, any loss of pregnancy, whether intentional or not, will, and probably will, become the basis for an arrest and prosecution. These changes and the possible expansion of the 14th Amendment to include the unborn will give state authorities, police, prosecutors, child welfare workers, and judges, as well as doctors, power to coerce and control pregnant women in every aspect of their lives. That power would extend to husbands and punitive fathers as well, who have already gone to court and used claims of separate rights for the unborn to do such things as prevent a pregnant woman from moving to another part of the state, or for requiring a surgical procedure that would prevent a miscarriage. The idea of a medical witch hunt, where the physicians and nurses that once provided safe and private care are now being deputized and incentivized to be enforcers of the law, is unfortunately no longer hyperbole. For example, a mother who attempted suicide and survived but lost the baby was charged with performing an illegal abortion. This is in Tennessee, by the way. Another example is the case of a woman involved in a car accident resulting in bodily injury and miscarriage and was charged with vehicular homicide due to the fatal demise of the fetus. This is also in Tennessee. But this is a reality. Pregnant women, it seems, are becoming a different category of the justice system of the United States. I am a mother. I have 3 children. I have a daughter who very shortly will be going through changes, and I need her to grow up in a world, in a city, that will not take her rights away, who will protect her and provide her with the correct and safe medical rights that everyone deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jordan Fernandez, followed by Katie Lloyd. Jordan Fernandez. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have Katie Lloyd, followed by Michael Larson. Katie Lloyd. All right, Michael Larson. As Mr. Larson comes up, I'm going to read the next 5 people, and the first one is Patty Castillo, followed by Blake Burleson, followed by Dole Garcia, followed by Ronnie Holmes.
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Michael Larson. I'm from District 5. On August 25th, 23 days from now, the anti-abortion trigger law House Bill 1280 will go into effect. This law will criminalize all abortions, even in the case of rape and incest. That means that here in Waco, when young girls, some as young as 10 years old, are raped or are victims of incest and become pregnant, they will be forced by the state of Texas to carry and deliver the child of their rapist. 10-year-old girls forced by law to deliver the child of the man who raped them. Recently, a 10-year-old girl in Ohio was raped and became pregnant. She was forced to leave the state to access critical health care. Not only did she have to endure a rape at 10 years old, if she were in Texas or from Texas, she and her family would also endure the bounty hunters going after her parents, her doctor, and anyone else who helped this child get the care that she needed. This law is draconian. This law is insidious. This law hurts women, and it hurts people of color. I encourage this council to take whatever action it can to help mitigate the damage that this shameful law will inflict on the citizens of Waco. I encourage you to act to protect the health and the rights of the majority of citizens of Waco. Please add an agenda item to consider the resolution to deprioritize the enforcement of House Bill 1280 and Senate Bill 8 within the city of Waco. Thank you.
Thank you. It is 8:20, and at 8:30 we have to vote to extend our meeting. We still have many cards, and so I think that for the sake of giving and ensuring the right to speak, I'll entertain a motion on whether or not to extend the meeting to a time certain. Again, the rule for our city council is that for a meeting to go past 8:30, we have to vote to extend that meeting and vote to extend it to a time certain.
Mayor, what's the, is there any limitations on the extension?
No, we can continue to extend. We can move to extend once more.
I'll move to extend till 9:30.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'll have some discussion. We still have many cards, and again, I really do so value the discussion here tonight, but as we move forward, I would please ask, as much as we welcome the speech, to continue to evaluate being judicious in your commentary. I do want to thank everyone for the civility with which the night has progressed thus far. So we have a motion and a second. Please poll the council.
Bearfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Borderood,
Yes.
Holmes, Meek.
Yes, that motion carries. And the next card is Patty Castillo.
Good evening, Mayor Meek, members of the City Council, and citizens of Waco. Thank you for this opportunity. I will try and make it brief. My name is Patty Castillo, and I am the president of the 400-member-strong McLennan County Republican Women. Today, I'm not going to talk to you about my pro-life stance or that of our members. I think that people have done it very eloquently up until now. Rather, I believe that the argument today concerning this supposed Grace Act is about the rule of law and keeping Waco a lawful city. The trigger law banning abortion was passed by the Texas state legislature last year and goes into effect 30 days following an official judgment by the Supreme Court overruling Roe versus Wade, which means the law goes into effect on August 25th. The new law will outlaw abortion except in instances where the mother's life is in danger. The Supreme Court has ruled, and the Texas legislators representing the citizens of Texas have ruled. In addition, the Attorney General of Texas has stated that his office will do their duty and enforce the law. However, the first line of defense is local law enforcement. And so what is Waco to do? It's clear: follow and enforce the law. Do we want to live in a place that ignores the rules of law? We've seen what's happened in cities throughout the country where police and law enforcement have been pushed aside, and now violence and anarchy prevail. This is not the Waco that I live in or that I want to live in, and it's not the Waco that I want our children to live in. I urge the City Council and other city governments in McLennan County to protect and defend our citizens and enforce the rule of law, and ignore and reject any attempts to interfere with the enforcement of our laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Blake Burleson. Is he here tonight? Mr. Burleson. Okay, I have Dole Garcia. Mr. Garcia. Dole Garcia. Followed by Ronnie Holmes.
Hello, how are y'all? I don't know what age group y'all are in. Y'all are probably younger than me. But if you were born after 73, you could have been aborted by your mother. I didn't really prepare a speech, so to speak, but I just want to address what Pastor Romero said and the young lady just now, Castillo. You have a rule of law. Our legislators have voted, and we should follow that law. And to say that we can ignore a law because we want to do something different, it's not proper. The other thing I want to address is, you hear my body, my choice. Well, my body, my choice. Well, the baby in her mother is not a separate body. It is a separate body. So where's the choice for the child? If the mother can decide if the child lives or dies, where's the choice for the child? And you say, well, they're taking away women's rights. How is the right to murder a baby a human right? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ronnie Holmes, followed by Raylynn Rhodes. Ronnie Holmes, followed by Raylynn Rhodes.
Good evening. First, I'm Ronnie Holmes, pastor of Church of the Open Door out in the north side, Belmead area. First, I want to commend you, Mayor Meek, for your strong and principled leadership in this city. I want to commend the City Council for the good things that continue to be promoted and to benefit Waco. But now for the issue of hand, of course, many people who love Jesus, who love and pray for our city, are here in this room and the adjoining room tonight. We're here generally to express our strong opposition to any city ordinance to tell or command our police department to deprioritize the enforcement of existing state law, which rightly criminalizes abortion. It's unthinkable that any part of city government would seek to give a free pass to Planned Parenthood to restart their business of executing babies in their mother's wombs. The history of abortions in Waco for over 2 decades has resulted in the deaths of about 20,000 preborn babies. Therefore, for anybody to endorse such defiance, first of God's law, because he said thou shalt not kill, and then of duly passed state law prohibiting abortion is unacceptable. The Bible says in Proverbs 24, rescue those who are unjustly sentenced to die. Save them as they're being carried to their death. Don't excuse yourself by saying, look, we didn't know. For God understands all hearts and sees you. He who guards your soul knows you knew. Several months ago, published in the Waco Trib, 88 area pastors and leaders went very public in their support of women and in their opposition to abortion. These churches represent thousands in our area. We cannot be silent on this matter. Since he was unable to be here this evening, I'll read some statements on behalf of John Pecluda, lead pastor of Harris Creek Baptist Church. He writes, the United States Supreme Court has ruled in defense of babies in the womb, and our Texas government has put laws in place to support this ruling. We're simply asking that our local government follow our state legislature As pastors in the city, we want you to know that we're eager to care for pregnant women before and after they give birth. And we will ensure that any unwanted child is given a great home to grow up in as you enforce these laws. I do not know of a pastor or church in Waco unwilling to support pregnant women, mothers, and their children. Our churches are committed to working together in this effort. And while abortion is wrong and now illegal, it's especially unnecessary in Waco. Jonathan Pekuda. Now, as I'm about to close, I want to say something very personal, and that's for those even here tonight who have endured the pain and the regret of a horrible decision to have an abortion. I want to declare to you that this is not the unforgivable sin, but like every other sin, must be repented of, and so that both forgiveness and healing can come from the Lord Jesus. We're here to help.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you. Next, I have Raylynn Rhodes, and as she comes up, I was going to read the next cards, which are Peter Munjaguera, Melanie Johnston, Stephen Ryder, Deborah Gilman, and Doc Anderson. Again, that's Peter Munjaguera, Melanie Johnston, Stephen Ryder, Deborah Gilman, and Doc Anderson. Ms. Rhodes.
Raylynn Rhodes, as stated, and I'm a resident of Waco, Texas. I'm also a student with Students for Life Action. You've probably seen some of our signs, and I'm wearing one of our shirts. I'm here today to stand for women and the preborn babies. I'm standing here today because my birth mother chose life. I was adopted from Brownwood, Texas, and she chose life over death, and that choice has allowed me to live a life of service and to help other women and their babies to live and to always choose that option. The Dobbs versus Jackson decision resulted in what most millennials wanted they wanted a voice over their abortion issue. With the decisions being turned back to the states, our voices can now be heard. Further, as we state, we already have spoken. We voted for our legislators who now lead us in public policy, and they put in place laws that Texans wanted, laws to outlaw the violent killing of preborn human beings in our state. Because we have already spoken by electing our representatives, we, the citizens of Texas and Wacoans, must adhere to Texas law and not implement ordinances that would do just the opposite. Abortion violently ends a human life by starvation, suction, dismemberment, or inducing a heart attack to an innocent human being who, according to biologists, has already started a life and begun their life with their heartbeat. In addition to ending their lives, abortion hurts women. Abortion results in an increased risk of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, scarring of the uterine lining, infertility, and so many more, and other cases that you have heard from women today. Abortion is not an empowering act for women. Instead, it makes women feel like they cannot reach their goals of being a mother, and that they cannot reach their goals of being mothers. I'm here today to urge you to vote against the Grace Act for the betterment of Waco, Texas. As Mayor Meek emphasized before this hearing got started, or before this session got started, Waco is a loving and caring community. The Grace Act would do just the opposite of that. Waco is also the heart of Texas, so let's save the lives of babies and let's save the culture, the heart of Waco.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Next, I have Peter Munjaguera, followed by Melanie Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I appreciate your time. Hello, my name is Peter Munjaguera, and I'm urging our city council to consider a resolution to deprioritize the criminalization of abortion in the city of Waco. I want to make our intentions this evening very clear. Supporters of this resolution, including myself, are not here to intimidate. We're here to educate y'all on the law, provide data, and share people's stories. This resolution is limited in scope and would simply direct our police department to deprioritize the investigation of any allegation, charge, or information relating to a pregnancy outcome. Furthermore, it would stipulate that our city will not spend money to store or catalog reports of abortions or miscarriages, or conduct surveillance or collect data or other information relating to any individual, organization, location, vehicle, action, financial record, or internet activity for the purpose of determining whether an abortion has occurred. This action by the council would be perfectly legal. We are not asking you to legalize abortion in Waco. There is no question that our state laws prohibit abortion, and it is the criminal penalties that bring us great concern. Doctors are turning away women in the middle of a miscarriage and advising them to come back when things get worse. Women are being criminally prosecuted for murder. This proposed ordinance is a matter of how our city chooses to prioritize enforcement of the laws of our state and how our tax dollars are spent to enforce those laws. Here's what this law does do. It protects our doctors and healthcare providers from going to jail for saving a woman's life when she will die without treatment. It protects women like Lizelle Herrera from South Texas, who was arrested and charged with murder after self-inducing an abortion. It protects victims of sexual assault from being investigated after they report in the case that they might be trying to terminate the pregnancy. And it protects our citizens from constant, barely constitutional surveillance of our bank records, internet history, mail, and whereabouts. Many have stated publicly, and some of you are no doubt saying privately, that this is a polarizing issue that runs the risk of turning our local politics into a partisan battlefield. But the reality is that these problems are here, and the luxury to ignore them is no longer on the table. Physicians in our community will have to choose between providing life-saving care and keeping their medical license, and women will be pushed to the brink of death and desperation to get the care they should be entitled to. There is not an ethical way to criminally investigate and prosecute those seeking reproductive care. It will place our law enforcement in our hospitals, community clinics, and homes, and take them off the streets where they're desperately needed. If you believe we should be prioritizing logical healthcare decisions and putting our tax dollars towards stopping actual crime, then I urge you to support this resolution. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next we have Melanie Johnston, followed by Stephen Ryder.
Hi there, good evening. I have a little bit of a change of topic. My name is Georgia Johnston, and I wanted to speak in regards to the 2022-23 proposed budget that you recently received for review. I'm here as a voter in support of the 2019 zoo bond package as a total and complete package for Cameron Park Zoo, the education facility, as well as the new proposed veterinary clinic. I'm the parent of a 5th grader who, alongside another 10-year-old friend in the last 2 years, they've raised over $5,000 through education exposure through Cameron Park Zoo for tiger conservation, and they're continuing on very strongly. You know, with this, when it was passed, it was presented as a total package and voted on as a total package. With what has happened with supply chain, construction costs, things of that nature in the last few years, I know that it is going to have to be reevaluated. At the same time, each of these components is critical to the success of the other, especially the veterinary clinic. When Cameron Park Zoo opened, they housed less than 100 animals at that time. And just as a lot of our agenda items earlier spoke to the expansion and the growth of our city and how we are countering the surge in our population, the zoo in that time has grown from under 100 animals to about 1,700, with the addition of the penguins also proposed to come. We need the space and the facilities in order to protect these critically endangered animals, not just the penguins, but I believe there's about a dozen or more species that are part of the species survival plan. And for those of you that are not familiar with the SSP, one of the many components of that is to also support captive breeding for a healthy and sustainable population for their future. So we're asking that the total package be looked at, reevaluated, constructed as designed and as proposed, so that we can have a project that is the caliber we're accustomed to in the city. It supports the growth of these critically endangered species, while being a place that our children and future generations can be inspired, just as my daughters have been. for the survival of all of the animals, and really they are residents of the city of Waco as well, and they need facilities that can care for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next we have Stephen Ryder, followed by Deborah Gilman.
Good evening. I want to thank the council for the opportunity to speak briefly. I grew up in Waco and then moved to Dallas for 23 years before returning to Waco in 2006. I was 18 years old when Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. Years later, I drove a friend to Dallas to get an abortion because we couldn't get an abortion here in Waco. Many years later in Dallas, I found myself holding the hand of a friend during a medical abortion. Labor was induced and the baby was finally delivered. The time seemed forever. Excuse me for just a moment. The emotions I felt were extremely difficult. Prior to her medical abortion, however, we had been protesting the nomination of Judge Bork to the Supreme Court. We both supported abortion. Our chant was, "Don't Bork with the Constitution." My work in Dallas included child care and preschool education, domestic violence shelter services, and outreach services for children, their mothers, and men who were battered. The work also included being a liaison to Child Protective Services in Dallas County. That meant that I not only trained, but I also accompanied workers out into the field. And that was my first taste of actual work with Child Protective Services. When working with the children, men, there would be times that law enforcement would not prioritize or prosecute particular crimes against these children, women, or men. I always found that to be a travesty. It was my advocacy and counseling work with children that led me to question my pro-abortion beliefs. It was difficult to reconcile children's safety with abortion. I became pro-life at that point. And during that time of change, I would go online to discussion groups to talk it out. I immediately was attacked for my pro-life position and the fact that I was giving up a pro-abortion position. I knew at that time that this was the right thing to do. Abortion is a part of the American death culture.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next we have Deborah Gilman, followed by Doc Anderson.
Hi, my name's Deborah, and I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to speak here tonight. Thank you for all being here. And I want to speak as an advocate for women's rights and an advocate for human rights. I'm so grateful to live in a place like Texas where we have rights without discrimination, no discrimination based on gender, race, religion, economic status, or age. And so I want to ask this council to consider, what are we thinking when it comes to Texas? What are we thinking when it comes to Waco about discriminating against the youngest of the humankind? The youngest girls, the youngest boys, are we going to allow them to be decapitated and dismembered and disemboweled through the process of abortion? We know that two human beings can only reproduce another human being. We can't have a dog or a cat. We know scientifically that if something's growing, that thing must be living. And so every time we have a pregnancy, we know scientifically, and you can study any embryology textbook that's used in any university in this country, and they will affirm that scientifically we know there's a living human being that is being torn apart by abortion. And so if we scientifically know there's a living human being in every single pregnancy, mustn't it follow that abortion is a human rights violation? Mustn't it follow that abortion is a human rights violation? And so we need to know that no matter the circumstances, we need to respect life. Some people have suggested that women who are very poor might need abortion. I think that women who are very poor need support from this community. They need support from this council, and we've heard numerous pastors and community members tonight offer that support. When is it ever okay to kill someone because they're poor? We've also heard that your rights should depend on how you were conceived. Can you look in this room tonight and point out who was conceived in love and who was conceived in hate? Of course not. And so if we believe in human rights without discrimination, we must value every child who is alive, which we know children in the womb are, until we kill them through abortion. We need to protect those precious human lives, or we are the ones discriminating. And Waco and Texas is no longer a safe place, no longer a place that stands for human rights. Is that how we want to be known? And so today, I encourage the council, I thank you for this opportunity, but I encourage this council to, whatever comes your way, whatever your petition to, think of the rights of the youngest members of our society, the youngest members in Waco, who you are responsible to protect and uphold their human rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Doc Anderson, but before that, I'm going to read the next 5 cards, and I have Destiny Hallman, followed by Deborah Woodballard, followed by Tracy Larson, followed by Tiffany Vidania, followed by Dana Barteles. I'm going to read those one more time. That is Destiny Hallman, Deborah Woodballard, Tracy Larson, Tiffany Vidania, and Dana Barteles. They will begin after Representative Anderson. Representative.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me say I'm honored to be here today to visit with y'all. We very much appreciate your service, particularly when it comes to dealing with such emotional and difficult issues. I'm the state representative in District 56, the absolute heart of Texas, and I'm honored to be here this evening. Let me say the super important issue, and as individually pro-life, very strongly so, and believe that the number one thing we can do at life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is protect life. And I think that as any government entity, our role, number one, is to protect life across the human spectrum. And let me say I was very pleased with that powerful presentation right before my presentation. That young lady had it right. When you talk about abortion, you're talking about dismembering an unborn child. And when you think about this issue, as important as it is, all those unborn children that are out there growing in the womb as we speak. The abortion procedure, they actually go in with a forceps that has a lock on there, it's a lock box, and they grab an arm or a leg or a foot or whatever and just pull that out, literally pull it out, dismember that unborn child. They assemble those parts to make sure, make sure they don't leave anything in the womb. No analgesic. These children are dismembered. Others are poisoned by all the abortifacient drugs. And just think about that. Nobody's concerned about how sick that unborn child is or how bad they feel before they're finally deceased. That can also have problems for that mother who's taking those drugs going forward with the next pregnancy and other issues, other health issues. But so I think it's super important to protect life, and I believe that life begins at conception. Therein you get the development of DNA and RNA, which is used in all legal forms to identify people, persons, and personhoods. And so that, in my mind, proves that that youngster is a person. It's very important when it comes to this issue that we respect the electoral process and we respect the legislative process. As it was very well said by Pastor Romero Pena and Patty Castillo, we need to respect the legislative process. If somebody, and it goes by majority rules. The legislative process is not a simple thing. These laws weren't passed by caveat. I mean, they went through a lot of discussion, a lot of public testimony, a lot of legal examination, and it's super important that we as a culture and as a nation and as a state respect the legislative process. If not, go back to the legislative process and change the law. Thank you all.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have Destiny Hallman, followed by Deborah Woodballard.
Hello, guys. I want to thank you all for staying, giving us this opportunity. I know none of us really want to be here this late, so I want to thank you all. My name is Destiny Hallman, and I really would love to second everything the sweet lady before Doc said. She was so well-spoken, and I hope everybody caught the attention of the things that she was really mentioning. Life does begin at conception. 93% of scientists do prove and say that from many, many different colleges around the world. So with that being said, you can debate the whole, whether it's a fetus or what stage of development it is. No matter what, that is a human life being developed, and no matter what stage, you are murdering a little infant, a child, a human being. And so I do believe it is a human right for everyone to have that opportunity, regardless if they are poor or raped or what matter. That child is an innocent child, and that child deserves life. So no matter the circumstances, I hope everyone remembers that when you have an abortion, it is murder. And I also would like to mention accountability. There is something that creates life, and we all know what that something is. It is someone needs to be held accountable. And with the city of Waco, I hope that everyone pays attention to that, because when you do not hold people accountable, that's when the city does create more problems. So I think it starts strongly with our police and their authority, and I hope everyone pays attention to that. And I thank everyone for your time, and again, for giving us all this time, because a lot of people showed up. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, I have Deborah Woodballard, followed by Tracy Larson.
Thank you for extending time this evening. Opportunity to speak on this proposal that would deprioritize enforcement of the Texas abortion ban. This action, as I understand, is based on what they're doing in Austin, where enforcement is directed to stand down and allow abortions to take place. And I just kind of want to ask, do we really want to be weird like Austin? Do we really want to treat our distinguished Waco police force like Austin treats theirs? I came across a quote that resonated with me a while back. In 1778, the commander of the Continental Army, then George Washington, as part of his orders to the troops, he stated, "The fate of millions of unborn generations depend on what we do here today." This was at the pivotal battle of Valley Forge. So I put forth that we can do better for the fate of our unborn generations. Since also spoken, abortions disproportionately affect minority communities, I think Waco can do better for our minority communities and not discriminate against them. We do not want to throw millions of unborn generations out with the medical waste. Instead of being minions to Austin, we should be forward-thinking. We should tap into our already robust pregnancy resources. Let's be a leader. Let's work as the team, as we've discussed, to come up with ways to support women in unwanted pregnancies, crisis pregnancies. Let's make our own way. Let's be a model for our state and for the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tracy Larson, followed by Tiffany Vidania.
Hello, I do want to thank you all for staying late. I know it's been late for everyone. I'm here to speak in favor of something like the GRACE Act. I want to start with I think we all want to find common ground. We can all acknowledge no one wakes up and say, I want to have an abortion. No one wants to see that. There's got to be common ground. I'm going to start with the idea about there are women in this room who have had miscarriages. There are men who have stood beside those women and helped them recover from the pain and grief that goes along with one. Now imagine that in addition to this loss, the woman or girl, perhaps your sister or your daughter, has also to fear being prosecuted, having to miss work or school, to go before a judge to prove her miscarriage was indeed an accident and not an abortion. Her parents, her spouse, her doctor are now called into question. Her medical records are laid out for public view. Sometimes her phone might be tracked. We're not sure where this will all go. It is sometimes easy to sit back and just let these laws, SB 8 or HB 1280, take effect because many of you think it will never affect you personally. SB 8 and HB 1280 have been carefully crafted to be weaponized against just about any woman of childbearing age and the people around her. They have also already instilled fear in the medical community and will encourage medical professionals to leave the state where they can work in a different state that is not, they don't have to worry about being prosecuted. The result of these laws will be less access to health care for all women. And as with all authoritarian laws, minorities will suffer the most. I don't believe the city of Waco wants to further divide this community. Passing a resolution that simply deprioritizes these laws will at the very least minimize the frivolous bounties that will surely occur by people wanting to profit by someone else's pain. We do not want our tax dollars spent invading the privacy of our neighbors. So I would ask that you do put this on the agenda for further discussion. Thank you all. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Next we have Tiffany Vidania, followed by Dana Bartels.
Thank you, Mayor Meek and City Council members, for the opportunity to speak. As many of you are well aware of the June 24th Supreme Court case that overturned Roe v. Wade, which ended federal protection of abortions. This struck our community hard, as many women now have lost the right to their own body. Although this was a huge step backwards for women across the nation, it seemed to bring a force of women and men together within our community. I am here to ask each of you to think about passing something similar to the GRACE Act, which is making the investigation of abortion-related activities the lowest priority of the Waco PD. I completely understand that this won't solve the bigger issue at hand, but it does reduce fear for women who may seek this health care elsewhere. Criminalizing those who are seeking basic care creates a Waco that goes against one of the main goals of city government, which is to provide a safe and vibrant city for its residents. As mentioned before, the GRACE Act would allow the Waco PD to focus on more pressing issues. And these pressing issues that are really big in our community so far are reducing gun violence and gun-related deaths, and creating stronger ties within our community. Criminalizing abortion would have disastrous effects within our community. It would deprive women the access to abortion care they need and deserve. It would disproportionately affect and criminalize people of color, low-income individuals, and underserved communities. This means that criminalizing abortion would have a significant impact on my district, the district that I call home and I've called home for the past 24 years. And this district is one that's particularly of color, one that's more of Hispanic background. Criminalizing abortion would also impact those of low income, which is which again pertains to most of Waco, as our poverty rate is more than double of the state's. This ultimately means that District 2, the community that I love, would bear these disastrous effects, as each of those boxes that I listed before are now checked. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Dana Bartels. But before that, I'm going to read the next 5 cards, which are Cheryl Foster, followed by Alice Ogden, followed by Bill Hurd, followed by Mike Metters, followed by Doreen Plott.
Good evening, and my name is Dana Bartels, and born and raised in Waco, Texas. Did Baylor, did University of Texas at Austin. I want to thank you for staying late. I want to thank you for paying attention. And it's very much appreciated that you are listening carefully to all of us. I just have a few points to make. I want to say, who are we and who do we want to be? I just found out tonight that this was actually a leak. Like, word got out that possibly something was going to be considered for discussion to something like the Grace Act.
Just to be clear, nothing was being considered or discussed.
Right. I'm saying it was just somehow this word got out, and this is the response just from some little rumor, I guess. But just to let you know, let's face it, Dallas and Austin have their eyes on Waco. But Waco is awake. We no longer consent. And we are not going to allow a power grab in a city council that could treat the police force like their own private Gestapo. We are going to bring legal defense, and we hope that you save our taxpayer money for your legal defense, because we will unleash a legal fury if you try to impose any of these unconstitutional ordinances or provisions. I also wanted to point out that one political party loves pitting us against each other. Women's rights versus the rights of the baby. I hate to tell y'all, it's really about the billion-dollar baby industry of Planned Parenthood. It's about the money. Fetal tissue is sold. Parts are sold. Every part has a different price. Organs, and it's even been exposed that organs taken from a live fetus are even more valuable. The money laundering that is happening is Planned Parenthood gives money to their affiliates, these organizations. The organizations or affiliates can then donate to you or to a political candidate. So it's very easy to, and perhaps be influenced by one of these groups that don't really represent Waco. And I was just reviewing a Waco Tribune Herald interview with a person representing a pro-choice group here in Waco. I won't mention it because she's probably here. And I laughed that she said, I feel like, oh, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Cheryl Foster, followed by Alice Ogden. And I'm going to read these cards because I want to make sure that I got them. Cheryl Foster, Alice Ogden, Bill Hurd, Mike Metters, and Doreen Plott.
Ready? Thank you for staying. SB 8 was blatantly unconstitutional. The zombie law that we're living in right now is heinous. The trigger bill that goes into effect later this month is dangerous and egregious. All of these laws were designed to strip women of their support systems when they need them the most. When faced with the most intimate and personal decision a woman will ever make, she is denied the counsel and assistance of her friends, her family, and her healthcare providers. For doing so would put them at great legal and financial risk. Does Waco, as a governmental entity, want to be part of a police state? Do we want to be Gilead? My God, I hope not. Last week, John Pashada, in his letter to the editor, noted that the city should be focused on infrastructure and city services. I agree. Perhaps we should build some more sidewalks. Waco should not be hunting down women who have had a failed pregnancy, having their privacy violated and their doctors threatened. The grace resolution is the tool that can help you stay out of this legal morass. So consider it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alice Ogden, followed by Bill Hurd.
Good evening, Mayor Meek and the City Council. I'm Alice Ogden, and I too am going to speak on a different topic, y'all's 2022-23 proposed budget. So a little change of topic here. I'm a member of the Cameron Park Zoological Society and a local zoo supporter for 46 years, and a volunteer and now current board member. Cameron Park Zoo has benefited from a unique partnership between the city, the county, and the Zoo Society that allowed us to pass 3 county bonds and bring a world-class zoo to Waco that is multicultural and multi-generational in scope. We wanted to voice our total support of any additional funding necessary to complete the 2019 zoo bond that was passed by over 60%. We voted in favor of the entire bond package presented, the veterinary education complex and penguin exhibit. The price tag of the bond did not affect our vote. The Zoo Society has been diligent in fundraising for the additional cost. In June, approximately 200 Waco McLennan County Zoo supporters indicated their continued interest and enthusiasm of the zoo bond by raising over $320,000 at Penguin Palooza. It also celebrated the substantial and generous gift by Gloria Young, honoring her late husband, F.M. Young, toward the future Penguin Shores. We would like to see the Vet Ed project built with a penguin exhibit. It's crucial that the vet facility be completed to accommodate the critically endangered species of penguins and other endangered animals at the zoo. This morning, I spoke with the McLennan County Commissioners Court. I congratulated all of our commissioners for their wisdom and leadership in completing the amazing base facility during COVID. A tremendous asset to Waco. Its state-of-the-art concession should serve as a model for other facilities that have concessions. It is sad that the 2019 zoo bond project and bidding did not progress during COVID, as the entire project would be well underway. We see numerous city projects getting started and progressing, but the 2019 zoo bond continues to have unfortunate delays, resulting in skyrocketing inflationary costs along with the supply chain issues. Additional delays only increase the cost. We're asking for your support for the second largest tourist attraction in Waco, Cameron Park Zoo, rated in the top 50 zoos in the U.S., an important anchor as the riverfront develops. Please vote yes to fund the shortfall in the 2019 zoo bond monies and provide an outstanding product that the citizens of Waco have anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Thank you for your service. Next, I have Bill Hurd, followed by Mike Metters.
Mayor and council members, particularly for staying late and hearing all of us. I'm Bill Hurd. I'm 80 years old. I spent 8 years in the Army and then got out of the Army, went to graduate school, earned counseling credentials, and became a college counselor. When I was in the service, I did my year in Vietnam, commanded a rifle company. When I left for Vietnam, I had a 7-month-old daughter. My wife wanted to have a baby while I was gone. I was very opposed to the idea, but she was 2 weeks pregnant when I left. And so I came home to 2 beautiful daughters, one 19-month-old and one 7-month-old, or 5 months old. I then fast forward to being a college counselor. I was a very young man, about 30, in my early 30s, and I was amazed that I was dealing primarily with reproductive issues with all the young adults that I dealt with. And I was really surprised that I had some women that came in and talked to me about their regret at having had abortions in high school. And we dealt with the issues that you would expect you to deal with. We dealt with grief. We dealt with shame. We dealt with remorse. We dealt with all of those. But I was surprised by a couple of women that came in to see me, and they were really dealing with some very deep anger problems. And they had anger with themselves. They had anger with the responsible guy. They had anger with their parents. They had anger with the people that had given them their advice about the abortions. So that was pretty significant. Fast forward until my girls were teenagers. And my daughter that was born while I was in Vietnam got pregnant in high school. The day she got pregnant, the night I found out about it, we went upstairs to her room, just she and I told her that she knew how her mother and I would feel about an abortion. However, she needed to know that she was going to have all the support that she would possibly need in whatever her decision was. Her decision was to keep that baby. The baby had ADHD and quite a few learning difficulties, but my daughter was very persistent, got her good tutors, put her in private schools, and that daughter now is a young woman in a good marriage with 4 children, and she's gotten certified as a teacher's aide. Is that telling me to
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I would like to tell you about the rest of my family.
Next, we have Mike Metters. Is he here? No, Mr. Metters? Okay, the next one I have is Doreen Plott. But before her, I'm going to read the next 5 cards. The next 2 names, I'm having a hard time making it out, but I believe the last name is Ross. Matthew Ross and Isaac Ross, followed by Lisa Mueller Munoz, followed by Sandra Michael. So it looks like maybe a Matthew Ross or an Isaac Ross, 2 last names Ross, Munoz, and Sandra Michael. And Ronnie Bird will be the next ones. Ms. Plott.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. Appreciate your time tonight. I got a call from someone, and they said, you know what, this thing is going on. They're talking about the Grace Act, and you should come down to the city council. I don't know where they are now, but anyway, I've lived here in Waco, Doreen Plott, for 40 years. I've seen the changes, the growths, industry, businesses. People with families move here for the quality of life. They want to raise their children, they want to contribute, be taxpayers. And the Grace Act, I did not know much about, so I decided to investigate and start reading. A couple of the things that I've read, which you all can read, says that Austin's defiance of state law highlights the resourcefulness of progressive cities in conservative states. It goes on to say how passing this Grace resolution is going to help the women that want or need an abortion. Well, the law is the law, and the law's already passed, and Roe v. Wade is over. So now we have a law, but then we have cities that want to find a resourceful way for progressive cities in conservative states. Well, the people that live in Texas live here because they like it here, and the people that are coming here because they want to come to a conservative state, in my opinion. One of the city councilmen up in Dallas, this is a quote from him when he presented the Grace Act to the city council in Dallas. He said, if you can pass the Grace Act, and the quote is, they, being the women, the families, whatever, they can at least know that there's not every level of government that's going to be raiding their clinics. So does the Grace Act mean we now can have an active abortion clinic in Waco? And if it does, then that's a violation of the law. So the thing is, if people do need to have an abortion or want an abortion, they can drive an hour and a half to Austin because they want to do abortions. But I don't think the people in Waco want to have an active abortion clinic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Matthew Ross, followed by Isaac Ross. And clarify that for me.
Good evening. How are y'all today? First off, I just want to say I was super excited that y'all are having us today and that we can speak about this. What I want to say is that when Moses sent the children of Israel over the River Jordan, he told them, he said, you know, to be an example to the nations of the earth. I'm having a lot of anxiety. I'm sorry. I don't speak in front of a lot of people. But most of all, what I want to explain to y'all is that just children, an example of life, love God. And I'm sorry, I can't do this. But I apologize, but I just want to say choose life, no matter what, for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Isaac Ross, followed by Lisa Munoz.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Isaac Ross. I am 14 years old, and I'm very thankful to speak in front of the City Council. Unlike the babies that have died and never had the chance to live. For the babies who never had a chance to love and to live a life, babies who never had an opportunity to speak like I am now. Many people don't understand what these babies go through when you have an abortion. People lie saying it's killing, also clumps of cells. Well, we are clumps of cells, and I don't want us as a species to be these merciless baby-killing murderers, which has no chance. Okay, these babies have no chance to beg for life, and they're poked and jabbed at the needle before being sucked into a tube. This act of abortion is truly horrific and unacceptable. Babies are being disassembled with a man-made machine. God wants us to be fruitful and multiply, not to be a bunch of merciless people who normalize this abomination. We need to come together as one, and we need to cancel this law. God bless everyone in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Lisa Mueller. You can help me with your last name. I'm sorry, I feel like I've mispronounced it every time.
It's Munoz. That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Good
I
evening.
apologize. Good
Thank
evening.
you for allowing us to speak tonight. I hail from New Jersey. We unfortunately have the number 1 or 2 prize to having the most abortions per year, 48,000. That was the stats for 2017. There are no restrictions. There are several late-term abortion clinics there up to the time of birth. You do not need parental consent, and many of the abortion clinics are right down the street from the high schools, and people come in and they can walk over on a lunch break. So I say that to say, it was like I thought Waco was a little different than that, and it is. But there is a stain on Waco, and that's the shedding of innocent blood. And I commend the people who are helping with the human trafficking, but it's such an oxymoron to support abortion and fight against human trafficking, because abortion is used for the birth control, and it makes it really easy for them to bring these girls to continue their work for them and to get rid of the problem which they see the pregnancy as. It's a travesty and it's vile. So I would think that anybody who's fighting for human rights and against human trafficking would also consider stopping abortion, because you'll stop that feeding line right there. It's a convenient and abortion is a convenient and lucrative form of birth control for the industry. So it's an oxymoron. In the book of Jeremiah, the Lord says 3 times, as the people are passing their babies through the fire to sacrifice the children to the god of Molech, I never commanded that, and it never crossed my mind. When will it never cross our minds to terminate life in the womb? We can't legislate our hearts, but I will tell you this: if the laws on the books say don't do it, those people like myself would not have an abortion because it's illegal. When you come to know the Lord, you know you're breaking his heart. And if you say you love the Lord and you're supporting abortion, he's saying to you, I thought you said you love me. Who are you really worshiping? Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Sandra Michael, followed by Ronnie Bird.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Sandra Michael. I moved here to Waco in 1977 with my parents. I was quite young, and my parents pastored the St. Paul Lutheran Church for many years. I was the youngest of four, and my oldest brother, who is severely mentally retarded, and it kept my mother quite busy for 58 years while she cared for him. I can't imagine my life ever being without him. My mother never once complained, and she never one day regretted all the care that she had given him over the years. I can't imagine what life would have been without him had he been aborted. We learned so many wonderful lessons from him. I'm so thankful that my mother believed in life and wanted him to have that. Whenever my parents retired from pastoring, we moved to a part of Waco where I went to University High School. University High School at the time was well known in the late 70s for a great deal of drugs, racial tension, and teen pregnancy. And I was one of those teen pregnancies at the time. I was 15 years old. My mother, being the godly woman that she was, said that abortion, of course, was going to be out of the question. And she did not like the idea of having a grandchild adopted out into somewhere where she had no way of knowing where he would be or what the result of his life would be or being able to be a part of that. So that was that. My oldest son is now 47 years old, married to a beautiful woman, has two beautiful children, and I'm so thankful every single day for his life. I just want to advocate for life today. And one of the things that my mother used to say in regards to people who have been brutally raped, and I can have no criticism for anyone who's had an abortion, because at 15 years old, if my mother had told me at the time that that's what I needed to do, I would have done that. So I have compassion for people who have been through these things, for sure. But one of the things that my mother would often say is that two wrongs do not make a right. And I'm so thankful for the strength that she provided in our family, for my son, for my grandchildren, and for my other 5 children and 9 grandchildren. So thank you. So I just urge you very much that whenever this topic comes up again, to please choose life.
Thank you. Next we have Ronnie Bird. Yes. Okay, Ms. Bird.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I appreciate the time. Mine is very impromptu tonight, and it's kind of a personal, and it's short and sweet. I could have been one of those murdered, aborted babies. My mom was 16, and when she got pregnant in high school, and God shed his grace because she didn't find out she was pregnant with me until like the beginning of her 9th month. And if she would have she told me she would have found out earlier, there probably would have been an abortion. But she had me and she kept me. And it's, it's really, the thought of it, and it was really bothered me, but she loved me even harder, though, after she had me. And I learned forgiveness through her and most of all God, because she was such a forgiving mom, and because, and I was her only child. at 16, she didn't have any more children. And I have an only child. And so the generation can continue. And I just want to end it with one of my favorite scriptures from God's living, breathing, active, healing word. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139, 13 through 14. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It is 9:24, and we have a deadline of 9:30. And so for us to continue, someone will need to make a motion to continue. We still have several cards tonight. I'll entertain a discussion or a motion.
Mayor, we are a robust, ambitious council, and the night is young. I move to extend the meeting to, I say, 11 p.m. at this point.
Oh, wow. Clapping. No. We have a motion and a second. I do want to applaud everyone's civility thus far, but I also want to note that as we continue to go into the night and keep our hardworking city staff from a variety of departments, including our CVB and the late night people that are working here, we're discussing an issue that I know on both sides of the issue is very emotional and very important for people to have the opportunity to share their feelings. But as a reminder, this is not up for a vote or discussion or act at this time. I would ask, for the sake of our staff, who is working very late tonight, to be thoughtful and judicious with your time and your testimony. So we have a motion and a second. Please poll the council.
Bearfield.
No.
Rodriguez.
I don't want to stay till 11, but I think 10:30 maybe, amendment. I mean,
I would amend to an hour. I mean, I know that, as Mayor mentioned, on behalf of our staff, we're here for this and we were elected for this and we're chosen to hear from you. But we're not the only people in this room.
So at this point, if that was the council's desire, you would have to take a vote on this motion and then there'd have to be a second motion.
Okay, no one made a motion other than...
No, Jim made a motion. Josh made a motion to 11.
Are
we still discussing?
So is that what we're voting on, the 11 o'clock?
Yeah, because we've called the question.
No.
So Jennifer, we can...
Sorry. You have to vote this one. You have to vote for this one, and then you can make another motion.
Yes.
No, so that way I can vote for this.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please poll the council.
Bearfield.
No.
Rodriguez.
No.
Palmer. No. Borderud.
Yes.
Holmes.
I'll go no.
Meek.
I'm going to back my boy Josh. That's a yes, but knowing what's going to happen. So is there another motion?
I make a motion we go till 10:30.
Motion and a second. Please poll the council.
Bearfield. Yes. Rodriguez.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Borderud.
Yes.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries. But before we proceed, we're going to take, it's 9:27, and we haven't taken a break for a while, so we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene at 9:40.